Hello and welcome back to Elvenhome after a break of about a month, I think. Lovely time had by me up in Orkney, if a bit blowy and not entirely warm. But onwards and upwards now with the Viaduct, and this episode really concentrates entirely on the Viaduct and something right at the end where change is about to come to Weathertop station. But first of all, the Viaduct, and you will in this episode not just hear me talk about it, but actually see the carcass at least be built. So let's go back about a week or so when I was just starting work on actually building the Viaduct. Having spent ages agonizing over how I was going to build the Viaduct, we can now actually get on and start building it. What you see in front of me is the base for the carcass. Now, I said, I think in an earlier video, that I would do this in a modular way, not least because it is really quite tricky having long lengths of card like this and fixing them and getting them to stay fixed as you glue across so big an arc. It's also because whilst I was away, I didn't think about building this at all. And when I came back, I couldn't quite remember how it was I was going to go about building it. This has been a good thing because it's cleared from my mind at layers of complication that I was adding to things, which is wholly unnecessary. What I need to do is to build in a modular way, as I was suggesting, a carcass. And then it'll be the exterior decoration of that carcass that will need to be embellished with the arches and one thing or another. But the carcass itself just needs to be a frame around which I can put all the exterior dressing. So what I've done so far, if I pick this one up, this piece of card here has had some strip styrene attached to it. You can probably just see there. Any of you that have built Metcalfe platforms will recognize this approach. Which they give you it in 1mm thick card, I think, which you use on the underside of the platform top to be able to attach and line up the walls. And this is going to present the same thing for me here, in that this, if I take this away, this is the first section. This is in fact the section that I cut for the mock-up. There's nothing wrong with it, it's exactly right, so I've kept it. And what I'm able to do then is to use that strip styrene that's stuck on there to be able to provide a lip onto which I can attach and glue the card and hold it while it fixes. I've marked the inside lines of where the cutout's going to be, because this will now be cut out, and that goes above the strip so that I can make sure that when I put it on here that lines up. If I bring it into the screen, I'm hoping you can see, not sure if it's showing you, but the lines come above that strip styrene and line up with the two lines on the top of the card, so that I'm making sure I'm getting this in the right place. One thing that you can see quite well here is the difference in length between the inside and the outside of the arc. If I put these together, that's how much longer the exterior is to the interior. And that's why it gets a bit tricky how you line everything up, but they do line up. If I line them there, they do line up. And so what I'm going to do now is get on and cut out the holes, and they're going to be rectangles, because again, I don't need to put any arches or anything in on this. I'm just building a carcass, and it's when I move to using the plastic brick card and other things that I have in mind, more of which once something comes through the post, that's the thing that will turn it from a very square structure into the Viaduct that I want to create. So I'll get on and get this built. in the 3 sections. And as I build, one thing I didn't mention is that these cards overlap. So that overlaps from there to the front of here. And similarly, the one that goes inside overlaps to the final one. And that will allow me then to knit them together and not have them all as entirely separate sections. So there will be some knitting together of the build. And then I will put pieces of card underneath to provide a lip to reinforce this joint, otherwise that will be loose. So I'll get on and do that and come back once I have this done, and I'll show you how I'm going to strengthen underneath ahead of actually starting to put the real exterior walls onto the carcass. I'm filming this bit several days after the last one because I've been working on 1 or 2 other things which I'll show you in the next video, because I'm waiting on some things to arrive, and I think they will go nicely in the next video. This is the pieces that you saw before, the 6 pieces that have been, 9 I suppose, including the 3 sections of deck. Very pleasing that all the sections of deck went together, all the side walls went together. Where I had marked the portals to be cut, they are all in their right place, and you can probably see through that you can see through to where the portal is meant to be on the other side. Everything lined up as it should. Went together surprisingly easily. I suppose all told it took me about 3 hours, but that was giving quite lengthy periods between each section going on to allow the glue thoroughly to dry before I started manipulating the next section into its place. Underneath, if I pick it up now, oh well, yes, just to say, when I put it on the layout, which you can see here, it's sitting on top of the printout very pleasingly. It dropped into place exactly as it should be on top of the printout. So that's rather encouraging that the cutting of the deck is accurate, which is of course absolutely crucial because of the radii of the curves as they swing round off the straight section. Just to show you the underneath, which I think I said in the last video I would do. It's at the moment it only has some basic support underneath, pretty simple stuff. Some of them don't go all the way up to the top of the deck. Some, like this one and this one and this one, I think, and another, do to provide a base for the deck. Of course, there's going to be more going in to put what will be the side walls when they go in, so that will add even more structure. But even so, it's a pretty sturdy thing, as you can see. So I'm rather pleased with that. That's the carcass made. I'm going to be having a good hard look at how I cover the carcass, and I've tried 1 or 2 things, but otherwise that completes this part of the build of the viaduct. And I'll see you at the desk in a moment just to talk a little bit about the starting to cover the carcass. As I've just mentioned, I've started to think about how I'm going to clad the carcass now that it's built. And the first decision that I've made, which is a change, is that the card that I bought, the plastic card or Slater's card that I'd bought to cover it in, was a proper 2mm card, and it just looks wrong. It just looks too small. For so substantial a structure, you've got these wee diddy bricks and they just look weird. So when I was in Harben Hobbies, I had a good hard look through the plastic card that they had and the Slater's card, and I settled eventually upon this 4mm, I think it is, card, which gives me a brick size that looks about right. I had another look at the bridge, which is a very small bridge that goes across the canal, and it is made of quite substantial pieces of stone. So I think I'm happier with this. I think this will look better. Well, and the most important thing is, I think the smaller bricks will look wrong. And every time I look at the thing, if I use the smaller bricks, I shall think that looks wrong, which is not the idea. So I've gone over to using this brick. And you may recall, I think in the last one I may have shown a little template that I'd done, which was for the arch top. And my original idea was that I would cut each of the arches out for this. Oh, hello, I'm giving it a funny, there we go. That I would cut out the 8 of these because there's 4 portals. They would be stuck on, and then I'd be sticking other bits of card on. But then I thought, that's a bit fiddly. And I'm not sure I want to be that fiddly. So then I went over to an idea, well, could I cut 4 of the arches in one go? And this is a bit close here, so, but I'll bring them in. There you go. So I had a go at cutting this. And it was close, but not close enough. And it reminded me, I mean, it's the thing I keep saying, it's really tricky to cut by hand accurately across a curving area where actually each of the portals is not strictly a 1 inch radius curve, because the curve is also obviously curving this way, but the card itself is also curving that way. So you need to adjust and measure up accurately for each portal. And of course, not every, although they're very close to being the same, they're not identically the same width in the holes that have been cut out. So I went back to an idea of actually doing each sidewall on its own, which is what I've done. This is actually for the first internal portal on the left-hand side, and it fits beautifully. And that's what I'll do. I will cut one of these out for each of the portals and marry it. And once this is the first one, once that gets stuck on, the next one will be cut out and measured so it butts up. And I'll be able to hide the join by a downpipe or something. I'm not too worried about doing that. And it will also mean that I can adjust the radius of this cut so that it matches the size of the portal that it needs to go in. And so each one of these will be bespoke for the portal that it's covering. One thing which I'll see if I can show me actually using this, which I've bought, which is a circle cutter. It's a very nifty little thing. And I'll talk more about it when I actually use it. But it's proved invaluable cutting through this card and cutting that semicircle that you see there. So that is helping me at least to be able to cut those accurately, because I think trying to do that by hand would be fun. And I don't mean fun. So that's where I've got to with starting to put this together. By the next video, I hope to have completed cladding. I have an idea for what I want on the top of the viaduct, because the height that you saw is the height it's going to be. I'm not going to put a higher wall, but there will be something else there, which is on its winging its way to me. So you'll see that in the next video. But that brings all the discussion on the building of the viaduct to an end for this video. I thought we'd end proceedings today with a slightly different view of things than you normally get. The camera is somewhat precariously perched, so I'm hoping nothing horrible happens whilst I'm talking, because it also gives you a good view of this end of the platform. And you may recall, some months ago, after my 8F arrived, or 8Fs arrived, that they kept giving the platform a biff. And I can't remember whether I mentioned that the 9F gave it a biff as well. And the platform really does need some serious attention. So I've decided to replace it and to build a slightly narrower platform and with more sharply curving platform ends. And that will also give me the opportunity, I think, to put more lights into the station building. I think I mentioned this in the last video, but if I didn't, when the station building was originally built, I did intend to light the buildings more than I in fact did. But as I've got more comfortable in lighting things, I think really some of the buildings could do with a bit of subdued lighting so that we could see more of it. And I may even, the main station building, which is on the left hand side there, that was a Metcalf kit. It's been renewed since I built that, though not exactly in the same form as I've got there, which is 3 kits together. And I'd like to get some lights in there, I think. So I may have a look at what's possible. And I'll have that as a side project whilst I'm building the Viaduct. And we couldn't have an episode of Elvenhome without something running. And I thought we'd put some of the less glamorous services that run on Elvenhome. The suburban coaches behind the Ginty, trundling their way around, and the auto coach behind the GWR Pannier, being driven, of course, from the auto coach end, whilst the fireman works his socks off on the footplate. I've been having quite a bit of fun, actually, getting engines to run that I've not run for a long while. And they told me about it when they started running. So a little bit of oiling has been going on and general TLC, and they're running beautifully, these two little tank engines. You may just be able to see a line of locomotives up on the incline. Those also have all received attention and have been given a good run around the layout, as there's nothing else presently on there. So that pretty much brings this edition of Elvenhome to an end. One in which the Viaduct has moved from thought to action, thank heavens, we all cry. And I will be able to show you a lot more when you come back in a couple of weeks' time. If you've liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And do please also let me have your comments, because I really enjoy getting the comments and they're all incredibly helpful to me. And if you haven't subscribed, well, please do subscribe. But until I speak to you again in about a couple of weeks' time, that's bye-bye from me. Bye-bye.